Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to extend our talk from last week about human design and autism. And so I have once again our fabulous guest speaker, Stacy Foust, on the show today. Thanks for being here, Stacy.
Thank you, Nikki.
I'm so excited to be delving into this. We are actually going to be sharing my human design chart today, as well as Drayson's human design chart. I thought it would be beneficial to share that with you guys listening in to get a kind of an idea of how this could maybe potentially benefit you and your family. So I will just let Stacy kind of jump right in first. We have some printouts here of our charts. I don't know, Stacy, do you want to start with mine or with Drayson's?
We'll start with yours.
Okay. Ooh, this will be fun.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
All right, Nikki. So on your chart, the first thing that I like to look at is type, and your type is a generator. And 70% of people are generators, and it's this little red sacral center filled in that denotes that you are a generator. And as a generator, you've got this renewable energy, which is so great. So when you're using your energy right, you will have new energy, fresh and new every single morning. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by right is it's really important for you to not go to bed until you're tired, until you've used up all your daily energy. Because if you go to bed and you're not tired, then you don't get good sleep. But if you go to bed tired, then you just pop back up the next morning and you go. I'm really jealous of that because I'm not a
and that's funny because my husband always says that I have to exhaust myself to go to bed.
Exactly.
Or why are you still working on something? You should go to bed. But if I don't finish it, I can't sleep. Mm-hmm. Like I can't. I'll have awful sleep. So that's really funny that, See, so I should be working up until I go to bed.
Till you drop.
Till I drop.
Till you drop.
Okay.
And the pure part of that means your gut is your authority. It's going to tell you what's right for you and what's wrong for you. And using that correctly will also sustain your energy. So what I mean by that is you do work best with yes/no questions.
Okay.
Not multiple choice, not open-ended, but give me a yes/no question. And so if
is that why I had awful test anxiety?
Exactly. Exactly. And so if I say to you, hey, do you want to go to the movies tonight? Your gut is either going to go, and rise up, or it's going to go, lower down. And it's really all about energy. So your gut knows if you've got the energy to do whatever you're being asked to do. Yeah. And even long term, we think we have the energy in the moment. So sometimes we say yes to things that our bodies tells us no to. Mm-hmm. And we get into it. And then all of a sudden we find that we don't have the energy for that. And then we regret it. And then that tugs a lot on your energy. So understanding your energy is huge.
So even though I can work till I drop, it sounds like that is also, I could overextend myself.
Absolutely. As we all can. Yes.
I'm like, oh, great. Okay.
So it's pure. It's in the moment. It's like, the minute you're asked, it's either a yes or a no. Or if it's like neutral and you're not getting that yes or no, it just means it's not the time to make that decision.
Okay.
So you can come back.
So even if I'm unsure, I could table that for a later time to make that decision. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then just come back to it. And it really is important for people to ask you yes/no questions. So if they ask you something and you're not getting that response, ask them to reframe the question and you'll get a better response.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then your profile, you are a 2-5. I love the names that Ra Urahu chose. Hermit, Heretic.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Oh, that means.
So the hermit, the 2, is really about your naturalness. Like, you do best when you follow your passions. You do best when you're able to talk about your passions, and you really draw people to you through your passions, through your naturalness of the things that you enjoy talking about. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And
I'm curious for my friends and family listening to the show if they're going to be like, yep, that's you. Like, I'm curious what their thoughts are going to be about this, but
yeah.
okay.
And then the 5 part is a leadership profile. And it's a leadership in the sense that other people come to you for advice. They come to you for them to fix their problems. They come to you as a savior. Like, you can like, ta-da, race in with your cape and like fix things for people.
Okay.
And because generators have this open, inviting aura, you probably get asked a lot to like do things for other people. So the main thing to remember is you want to run all of those, questions, all of those
Scenarios
through your gut to know if it's right for you or not. Okay.
Okay.
And then the definition is single. That just means all of these centers that are colored in have channels that connect them all. And so you don't have any breaks, which is really great for you because single definition, you don't really need other people around you to get stuff done. In fact, it's actually easier for you to kind of like go into your office or go into your room, wherever you're going, and just knock things out on your own.
Yeah. And that is definitely me. Like, there's sometimes where I've just said, I need to close my door, or I have to put in my earbuds and completely zone everything else externally out so that I can focus on what I'm working on.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I actually feel like I multitask a lot better when I do that.
Yep. Your little arrow up there on the right hand, top right, facing right is you can multitask, which I don't have that arrow. It's so interesting to me that you can actually listen to 2 conversations at the same time.
I can.
I cannot.
Like, I'll be talking to somebody and I can hear a conversation off to the side of what's going on.
Unbelievable.
And I can pick up on that.
Yeah.
That's happened to me too. And for those of you listening, this is like, it's printed as if it's a chart in a chart form. So, and it's a chart of the body, and it has, I'm assuming these are the gene keys, right? On the sides.
They are.
There's like little boxes on the side with gene keys, and then there's centers across the body, almost very similar to like a chakra almost, but they're in certain areas of the body, and and she's able to describe, that's what she's describing right now. For those of you that are listening, it's like an actual chart, an actual printout of a chart, which is why it's so cool, because when I got Drayson's, I was able to put my chart next to his and see where there were some alignments. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead and tell me what else I need to work on about myself. I was like,
but isn't it true that you kind of innately knew these things about yourself, and then it brings you into alignment? I
did. And it's funny because nobody has ever really said that about me.
Yeah.
Like, people come to me and say, I need some advice about this, but I don't think they necessarily know why they're coming to me either. And then sometimes I've had moments in my life where I'm like, why is everybody coming to me and asking me questions about X, Y, and Z, and so it's very validating for me to hear some of this. Yes.
Yeah. Just remember that you're not here to solve everybody's problem.
Right. Right.
And so you do need to run it through that sacral center to decide if that is for you or not.
Yeah.
And then generators are here to respond. And I think this is where generators can get messed up sometimes too, because I'm a manifester. I'm here to initiate an impact. But you really are here to respond to life, respond to people's questions, respond to things that show up in your life. You're not really out here to go start things, if that makes sense. But when something shows up, you're here to like use your sacral center.
I'll take it and run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that also means that if you see somebody who's kind of going off into the weeds and you have a solution for them, and you do because of that 5, that leadership, it's important not to just rush in and give your advice because the channel between the two of you will not be open, and you'll either get the reaction of like they won't even hear you.
Yeah, I'm just being bossy or...
Yeah, they won't even hear you, or they'll push back on you because it's such a surprise. And so if you instead go in and say, hey, if I have a thought on that, would you want to know? That literally opens up a channel between you and the other person to where they can hear you. And
it's less intrusive.
less intrusive.
For them.
Yeah.
For me, I don't care. I don't care about being intrusive, but I'm just kidding.
But it helps
Sort
them
of.
hear. It does help them hear you for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
And then I love talking about this upper left hand.
It's my favorite one.
I know.
My favorite.
So Nikki's upper left-hand variable faces left, and that is all about intake of food, intake of information. And facing left means she has a very active brain, and she needs nutrition on a regular basis. It's not good for you to fast. It's not good for you to go too long without nutrition. So how do you handle that?
So I snack all day. As soon as she told me that I was okay to have snacks, it validated so much for me. Now I go running around saying, but I need to have snacks. It's good for my brain. Like I need it for my brain. But it's not untrue.
No.
So I get very excited now that I can have more snacks.
And then, but Drayson's faces to the right. So his brain's a little more inactive. So I'm just going to pull that up.
Yeah.
So what have you noticed about Drayson and his eating patterns?
So he can go long periods of time where he doesn't need to eat. And that has stressed me out considerably. Like, raising him, when he doesn't eat, and I get immediately concerned. But I also come from the culture of a family where it's like, oh, well, you should eat something. You should eat something. So it was very hard for me at first. I felt very fortunate though in my background with my undergrad degree in nutrition. One of the things I learned was that it's okay to eat when you're hungry. And so I tried to always remember that with Drayson, but he does not need to, he eats in waves. And right now he's eating like a horse probably because he's preteen, but there are times where it's like, have you had anything to eat today? And he won't need to eat until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, which is very odd for me because I'm like, you need to have a snack.
Because you do.
Because I need a snack. So so that has been really interesting to learn that about Drayson. Yeah. Interesting. And I know you had mentioned to me a while ago that I have, is it the reflector quality? Is that? Okay. So that was really interesting to me. And that was very telling. So you, do you mind explaining a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when you look over at the profile, the centers that are not colored in, they're either open or undefined. And open means there are no channels coming out of them. So the diamond in the middle is called the G center, and it's a center for identity, self-love, and direction. And yours is completely open. So is mine.
Yeah.
So I can really relate to this. And when I found out, this changed everything in my perspective, because what happens is because it's completely open, we reflect back to people their identity, their self-love, and their direction. And so if someone loves you, they love themselves. And if they don't like themselves. So it has literally nothing to do with us and everything to do with them because we're reflecting back to them who they are.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of examples in my life that's happened where outbursts or people react to me in a way that I'm not really understanding why they're reacting to me that way. And I didn't realize I was holding up a mirror.
You are.
Oh yeah, take that. I'm just kidding.
And you actually have a double dose of it because you've got this open G center, but the 5 in your profile also, people will love you or not. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, and I noticed on this chart that I have some centers filled in and some are, would you say more of my centers are open than filled in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you have 3 filled in, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
6 open.
Yeah, 6 open.
Twice as many open as closed. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between an open center and a closed center?
So your closed centers have your own energy. So you came here with your own energy in those centers. You're not going to be picking up energy from someone else in those areas. So for instance, your sacral center is the main energy center. And so as the main energy center, you're running on your own energy. You don't need to pick it up from anybody else. The open ones and the undefined ones give us a lot of wisdom and insight into other people.
Okay.
And so let's say your emotional center, because I think, Drayson has his filled in. So yours being undefined, you can feel Drayson's emotions, and it actually magnifies within you. So he may be feeling sad about something. You're going to feel it even stronger than he does. And it gives you the insight that, hey, it gives you empathy is what it gives you.
Right.
And you know that, hey, he needs some extra love today.
Yeah. And I think I've noticed that just in general with my friends and family and people that surround me on a daily basis, that I do feel this draw sometimes to do things I don't know why I'm doing them. Does that make sense?
And it really makes sense for you, because we talked about your first gene key, your life's work is the 19, and it's the one where, and when I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know why Drayson chose you. Because it's the Utarian, and as a Utarian, you really sense at a very deep level people's needs and what they need in the moment, and not just emotionally, but physically as well. Like you can sense when somebody needs something, whatever that need is.
Yeah, and that's happened to me a lot. Like there's times where I don't know why I'm doing it, but I just feel like they need it. And I haven't recognized that even with Drayson. So that's really interesting that you're bringing that. And again, like these are things I kind of already knew about myself. Yeah. But to have somebody else describe that about me and to articulate that, no one has been able to articulate that until Stacy. So
it's the information. It's the tool.
These the tools
are
amazing. I know. So for me personally, like what are some things that you would then recommend to somebody with a chart like this to make sure that I'm staying kind of in an alignment, so to speak?
Several things. So because you are so open and you have a 2 in your profile, it's going to be good for you to get away and be in your own space every once in a while, to regroup and recharge, because you are picking up a lot of energy through your emotional center, your heart center, your identity center, your throat, all of the ones that are open. It's really important to do that.
Could that also be why sometimes I have my introverted moments?
Yes.
Because sometimes I feel like my intake is so much that I just need to be alone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. The more open your chart is, the more you're going to have that tendency to want to get away from people and just be in your own space. And single definition as well. That is very much about being on your own and being in your own space to have that flow. Yeah. And feel sane.
And when I don't feel like I get that time, I get really squirrely, guys. Really squirrely. Like you don't want to be around that. It's no bueno for anyone around me. How about that? Well, let's jump a little bit into Drayson's human design chart. And kind of give me, now this was surprising because a lot of centers for him he's got, it looks like 4 centers closed and 4 centers open. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 5?
4. Yeah, 5 filled in and 4
Oh, sorry.
open.
Excuse me. Yes, 5 centers closed and 4 open. So a little bit different, but we did have some similarities.
You have a completely open heart center, and they call it the ego center. So you will have this wave of belief in yourself and willpower. And when you're around other people who have their heart center filled in, which is only 20% of people, so 80% don't have it colored
filled in. Okay.
And 20% do. But when you're around other people, you're going to have this willpower to do things times 10. And then when that person's not in your space, it goes away. So it'll feel really strange.
Yeah. Yeah,
That-
that makes sense.
Sometimes you have willpower to do things, and sometimes you
Sometimes I'm like, I'm not.
Don't.
I always say, I'm not adulting today.
exactly.
I'll just be like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And both you and Drayson have that.
Okay.
And so his throat center is filled in and yours is not. And so it's really important for you to not speak with too many like scripts. You really need to like just come in and speak from your heart.
Yeah.
But for those of us that have our throat center filled in, it's good for us to have bullet points and something to kind of follow is very helpful.
Interesting. Okay. And so he needs, and that could be also why he thrives off of structure. I've noticed, like he's very structured. The more structure I give him, the better he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't feel like I need as much structure, so I can kind of fly by the seat of my pants, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. His arrows are facing almost, well.
It was everything opposite. It's all opposite.
There's a lot opposite, yes.
And I'm telling you, this child has challenged me in ways. This child has challenged me. No, but I think that this is interesting this is great insight for me. Mm-hmm. So a little bit more. So kind of, if you want to, go ahead and go through some of the key points about Drayson that.
Yeah, so he is what's called an emotional manifesting generator. And the difference between a generator and a manifesting generator is the throat center is filled in and there's a motor to the throat. So he's got his emotional center connected to the throat. And so he's able to move a little bit faster. So generators are here to master things, and you learn and you learn and you just keep moving forward. He's really here to like find different ways to do things that are a little bit more time effective and efficient.
Okay.
And so he's going to skip steps. He's
a shortcutter.
He's a shortcutter.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that manifesting generator piece, he'll tend to want to initiate, like tell you what to do, but he really should go into respond.
Okay.
Because when he asks for things instead of just tells you, he'll get a better response in life.
Yeah.
In general.
Mm-hmm. He won't seem as bossy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is true, because I remember even early on when he was learning how to read, they give you the phonetic steps, so I remember he came home one day. I don't even remember what word it was. I was like, okay, like trying to sign. And he just looked at me and he looked down and he said the word. Like it was like he completely cut the whole trying to pronounce that word and just went straight to the pronunciation of the word. Mm-hmm. And so he didn't need all of those little steps, which is also really funny because he's dyslexic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he reads beautifully. So his dyslexia actually, I think, is been hard for him with this comprehension piece. But it's really funny because he would just go, it was almost like he would look at us like, why are you saying all these other, like he looked at us like we were crazy, and he would just go straight to it, look at the word and read it.
Yeah.
And so that shortcutting, same thing. I've noticed him do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or if he doesn't want to do certain steps, he'll cross off the other steps in between and just go from step 1 to step 5, and he'll cross out 2, 3, even 4.
Yeah.
It's almost like he looks at me again like that's unnecessary, mother.
That's exactly it.
So that's really interesting. Okay. Yeah. So it's okay to cultivate that with them. Okay.
Yes. And I think the other thing to know about manifesting generators is they're here to do anything and everything that lights them up. They're not here to follow one track.
Yeah.
And society says you can't chase more than one rabbit and expect to catch any of them. But that is so not true for manifesting generators. They're here to chase all the rabbits that light them up.
Interesting.
Because the more they, chase all the rabbits, the more they find the path that they're supposed to go down. Okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So they're exposing them. It's just more opportunity.
Absolutely.
The more you expose yourself, the more, and in terms of opportunity, like that's amazing. And I think you had said that too about me as well. That was very validating early on with mine, because throughout my life, I've always like, what do I want to be when I grow up? And here I am almost 50 and I'm like, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But one thing that you had said to me early on was that I wasn't meant to just do one thing. And when you said that to me, it was almost like I had that validation that I needed to just be okay, doing several different things at once. And I think that that's interesting for Drayson because in the realm of autism, we focus so much on one thing at a time for them.
And that's not correct for his.
So he can handle more rabbits, is what you're
He
saying.
can handle a lot more rabbits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Which is probably an underestimation on my part. Yikes. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
I know.
But the reason you can do more than one thing throughout your lifetime is your open identity center. You don't have the identity of just like one identity.
One identity, yeah.
You can have the identity of being a mom, being a podcaster, whatever you want to do, you will pick up that identity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Drayson's is filled in. So he's got a single identity, but he knows who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I always say that with Drayson, what you see is what you get. I've always said that. And I really, truly believe that because he's not a sugarcoater. He is who he is. And it's almost like he's very proud of that.
That's great.
So I always tell people, I'm like, you're not going to get a deviation from that part of him, So, and that's closed. That's interesting. So that center's closed off, but mine's open. Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yep.
And is he I'm a 2-5, but he's a
4-6.
Okay.
So the 4 is opportunist. All of his opportunities in life will probably come through people that he knows, and that can be jobs, careers, people, all resources, all the things.
Okay.
And then the 6 is really interesting. That's the role model. They live their lives in 3 different, I have a 6 in my profile. So from like 0 to 30, we're in a trial and error stage. So we need to make a lot of mistakes. And it's really important for parents with kids that have a 6 in their profile to like let them make mistakes because that's the way they learn.
Oh my God, I'm such a control freak. It's so hard for me. I'm like, okay, go ahead and make the mistake. Oh God.
Yeah,
okay.
Hit your head.
It's
all
like
the things.
And I think that's hard as a parent. It's like watching the slowest train wreck, happen. Like my oldest child, I love, obviously I love both of my kids tremendously, but even with Cody, it's like watching, even, and with Drayson, watching that slow train wreck happen sometimes. And you're like, they got to learn on their own.
Yeah.
So you're telling me basically like, let him make mistakes.
Yep. If we don't allow our kids with 6 in their profile to make mistakes, then they don't learn. And then they always have to rely on us. And that is not what you want.
Okay.
Yeah, you want.
Yeah.
We're raising adults, not children, right? That's what I've always heard. So.
Yep. That's actually a great way to put it.
Yeah. So then at 30, they tend to like take a little step back. They call it going on the roof, where they've taken all this information that they've learned from making mistakes and trial and error. And now they're watching other people and how they operate, and they're learning how life works.
Okay.
And that goes until about 52 to 55, where we come into the last part of the 6. And that is where we really step into our wisdom. And people see us as role models. And so people will come to him for like, what did you do about this? How'd you do this?
Okay.
Like, they'll
So
see.
similar kind of to mine, but at a later stage in life for him, probably.
Exactly.
Interesting. And I think, when we originally met on this and you reviewed this with me, I remember I got really, really emotional. And I think that was because I realized that even though I try to give every opportunity to Drayson, and I try to operate from a heart center of love, trust, and influence, I always say, I think what I felt a little godsmacked about was that I was still underestimating him.
I think that's when we started talking about his lines, because he's got some very interesting lines.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the lines, the preservation line, is all about responsibility. So he will feel a deep-seated response, like innate, that he's responsible. And it may not show up until later in life, but he will take on responsibility for himself and also for others.
He's doing it now. I mean, even at this stage, when we try to course correct him on certain things, he gets so upset about it. Like, I mean, deeply upset. It's not just a, like if I tell him to stop doing something, he gets very upset. And it's almost like he just beats himself up about it, that responsibility piece. It's almost like, so one of the things that we've been trying to do is to try to help him to realize that it's nothing to get, super upset about. Like, it's not a big deal, so that he can learn from that, but yet not take on so much of that responsibility feel.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that with him. And he'll get really upset. He'll start to cry. And then what's hard is that when I ask him, then why are you crying? He can't identify why he's upset.
Yeah.
So that's been really difficult. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And then the other 2 lines that he has is all about not logic.
Yeah.
He's supposed to just jump in and experience life and not really to follow a leader. He's here to follow his own lead.
Okay.
And the transitory line is about, an experiential life. He's here to experience life to the fullest. He will have relationships, but he won't feel the need for continuing relationships after the experience, which I think is very interesting when you look at autism.
Yeah.
Because I remember my daughter, the first inkling that I knew something was off is everybody would know her name and say goodbye to her. And I'm like, well, who is that? And she goes, I don't know. And she's got a little bit of that too. There's just not a need for those relationships.
Okay.
With that line.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And
long term anyway.
Right, at least long term. But it's not to say that relationships aren't important to him.
Exactly.
It's just how they serve their what purpose they serve for him.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. And his head center's open like mine, right?
Yep. So you will be very inspired you'll get inspirations to do different things and experience different things. Again, you want to run it through your gut to see what's right for you and what's not, because you'll get inundated with a lot of things that you're inspired to do and try.
Okay. And his intuitive center is also closed as well. So he has to run it, just like I have to run it through. Does he have to kind of do the same thing, run it through that center?
So with decision making, it's just your gut.
It's just the gut.
The square. But the one to the left of the square, that little triangle, that's called the splenic center, and that's the center for intuition. So you do have those spidey senses when you're getting sick.
Okay.
You also kind of have spidey senses for who's right for you, who's not.
And he does too, it seems like. Okay, because I noticed his is also closed.
Yes.
Okay. And that's what'd you say? It was the splenic center? Okay. I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Not intuitive center, splenic center, people.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Tomato, tomato.
Yes.
Maybe. So one thing that I've from what you've been describing about Drayson is I think sometimes it's perceived as impulsiveness. But it's not necessarily that he's being impulsive. Yeah. Would you say that would be accurate based on him having some of these experiences, allowing him to just kind of jump in and do things as he feels the calling to do?
Exactly. He's not going to logically think, should I do that? Should I not? He's just going to jump in and just try things.
Yeah. So great. Yay, me. Can't wait for this stage.
Yeah.
And I have noticed him becoming a little bit more adventurous. Like he's now 12 and he's entering preteens, which I'm so excited about this. I just hope I get a trophy once we get through the teenage years. Like that's what I'm going for, the trophy. But I've noticed he has been doing things a little bit more impulsively. So that's just him wanting to try things.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So I shouldn't limit him from that.
Yeah, you really shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard.
Yeah, I know.
That's going to be really hard. So, when we're talking about the, parent-child relationship, what pearls of wisdom could you give me to better help Drayson be the best version of himself? Because I do feel this sense to be, an advocate for him and to give him those opportunities. So what suggestions or advice would you have for me?
I think the most important thing is understanding yourself first and what your triggers are, because that I wish I would have had this information when my daughter was growing up, because I would get so triggered by her emotions because my emotional center is open. And if I would have just understood that a little bit more about myself, I think that would have helped us a lot.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for grace.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then once you understand yourself, because I think it's important to understand yourself first,
right,
then you can start to dive into their profile a little bit more, helping you understand, how he's going to show up in the world, and how, like you said earlier, just how you can support him as he's like exploring things and experimenting and learning and all the things. And just knowing that that's the way he is. You don't have to.
And being okay.
And being okay with it.
Being okay with that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And not adhering to what I feel my vision should be of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was something I just spoken about on my last podcast episode. Leadership and Courage was I had to break the myth of what I wanted him to be or what I thought he should be growing up. Mm-hmm. So do you feel that this would also be beneficial for caregivers? Drayson works with like speech pathologists, occupational therapists. He has so much support needs. Do you feel that this would also potentially not just be beneficial for parents to do with their children, but even for care providers to learn something about themselves and how they operate when giving services to children on the spectrum?
Yeah, I think coming into alignment with who you are gives you confidence. And when you're confident, then you're able to help other people without worrying about things. Oh, there's so many reasons to do this. And just understanding yourself so that you can understand others. And from learning this, I realized that I had put other people in a box because I thought everybody operated the same. But now, there's 7 billion combinations on this, and there's like 7 billion people on this planet. And so we're all going to be so different. And so it gives you this insight into understanding that people aren't going to be the same as me.
Right.
Or you.
Right.
And we're all different, and it gives us grace.
Right.
And takes away the judgment.
Which I think is a great way to be open-minded or to shift yourself into that open-minded mindset, because that can be really difficult, and especially, we're talking about this on a very personal level, but, there's a lot of societal influences, we're made to kind of conform into these boxes, and this just takes those boxes and completely dismantles them almost, I feel like. So this has just been really extraordinary. I really appreciate you coming on the show today and explaining all of this. And it's definitely, like I said, has really helped me to learn a lot more about Drayson. So thank you for that. And I feel that it will make me a better parent. It makes me a better person to have a greater understanding of myself and of my child. And so hopefully I'll be able to expose him to a lot more opportunities here in the near future. And I've got to learn to let go maybe a little bit too. This will be interesting. So I'll keep all of you guys informed and stay tuned on how that works out for me. I have a feeling I have a couple trials and tribulations on that one for sure. But if you're interested in reaching out to Stacy, I will post all of her information in the show notes for you. Please do not hesitate to reach out. She's a wonderful resource, and a wealth of knowledge and information that I can't even tell you has just been absolutely priceless for me. So again, thank you for being on the show today. I love you and I appreciate you so very much.
Love you too.
This concludes our episode for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you're hearing, please feel free to hit that like and follow button on our YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram channel. If you have a question, comment, or even a show topic that you would like to hear about, please feel free to email us at info@piecesformypuzzle.com. We would love to hear from you. And if you know people in the community that this could help for, please spread the word and feel free to give us a good rating on whatever your preferred podcast platform of choice is. Once again, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you so much. And until next time, keep working on your puzzle. And remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.